Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game. So today I got a fun and very unexpected episode for you guys this evening because over the weekend, Low Content Burning Rangers released a patch to be able to play a prototype version of Saturn Bomberman called Bomberman SS. Basically how this works is back in the day there was a demo disc that had a battle mode on it. Come to find out that the entirety of Saturn Bomberman in a beta format was on the disc, and through some patching we're able to access that entire thing, some debug menus, different characters in battle mode, and a lot of other things that we have never seen before. And if you're not aware of the channel or me personally, Saturn Bomberman and Bomberman in general are one of my favorite games in the series of all time. So having a prototype version of what I think is one of Sega Saturn's best video games of all time is absolutely spectacular. Unfortunately, this is not High 10 Bomberman. We have never yet seen that dumped, but I'm sure it is out there somewhere, and hopefully one day I'll be doing a video on that as well. But I did not expect in any way, shape, or form to see a prototype of Saturn Bomberman release, and now it is here today. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined to want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. Now, fair warning, myself or nobody else knows the entirety of the changes in this prototype version. It's only been out for about 72 hours, and there's going to be a lot of research needing to be done to understand exactly what different features, graphics, functionality, and otherwise are in this prototype. But that is going to be so much fun to actually follow around and see what is going on. When you would lose a battle game back in the demo, you would see this screen talking about Saturn Bomberman, or in this instance Bomberman SS, coming out in 1996. So this is an earlier build that is enabled with the patch based upon the retail game as well as information from that demo disc. So as we move into the main game on Bomberman SS, it does share an insane amount of similarities. This is not going to be a massive difference so far. There's definitely a little bit of different graphics here and there, and some of the level board layouts I've never seen actually occur on Saturn Bomberman, but actually going and playing around is going to be a ton of fun. But as we move over to real RGB Sega Saturn capture of the same game, you're going to see that this is a near final build, at least in the first few levels. But even though it's not massively different, having this in and of itself is just so much fun. Sega Saturn has been having a renaissance in 2024. We got the new Symphony of the Night version coming out, we have X-Men, the arcade game, being ported over, and now we have Bomberman SS running on Sega Saturn hardware. Now I did this in Mednafen, I also tested on a MiSTer FPGA and real hardware, and it seems to be functioning in every different direction. But I like to test these on emulators everyone has access to, so you too can get in on the fun of hunting differences and seeing what this prototype actually has to offer. And if for some strange reason you've never played Saturn Bomberman before, definitely check this out. It is, in my opinion, one of the best 2D games ever made. But tell me down below what your favorite Sega Saturn and 2D game is, because I would be curious. But again, this sort of preservation and modding is the lifeblood of things like Sega Saturn and every other retro system. People out there are doing this all the time, giving us new experiences and doing preservation research to find what might exist that we didn't realize. Because up until 72 hours ago, I did know a demo disc for the battle mode of Bomberman did exist, but I would have had absolutely zero idea that there was a fully completable prototype version of Saturn Bomberman on the disc as well. But honestly, that's not that weird. Back in the day, a lot of demos would just include entire prototype games, and there would be some sort of coding to basically stop the experience. This is not the first time that an entire prototype has been unlocked via this method, but considering it's for one of the most famous Sega Saturn games of all time and one of my favorite games, it was just that much more exciting. Now you will see that as we go through the game, the structure is going to seem similar, but I have noticed some small changes in the graphics, and I'll see if any of you noticed them as well. I would be curious. But I have not yet played through this entire game. I'm going to be doing it throughout the week and trying to find some more differences to document, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot in here. And with the test and debug menu, you're going to be able to see all of the graphics on board this executable as well, because all it does is change the actual Bomberman game you're playing within the patch. But of course it is Saturn Bomberman, or in this instance Bomberman SS, so it still has one of the best soundtracks of all time. Go ahead and listen for 45 seconds and I'll come back and talk more about the prototype. I would say that's the second best Bomberman soundtrack ever made, directly behind Bomberman here on Nintendo 64, which I think is one of the best video game soundtracks of all time. But again, just being able to see something like this happen is so amazing. I love prototypes. Obviously, I collect them and release them when I find them for people to enjoy, and that is why I celebrate stuff like this so much on the channel. Nobody knew outside of basically somebody in a development position in Japan that the entirety of Bomberman on Sega Saturn existed on this demo disc. Now everyone knows and everyone can go in and enjoy it. You'll see all of the different options here in this demo version of Bomber Stadium as well. This is going to be slightly different than what you would get on the retail Sega Saturn disc, and of course if you can get a bunch of friends together and play this, it is absolute pandemonium. It's one of the most fun times you can have on Sega Saturn or any retro gaming console in my opinion. Playing this with 7 other human individuals is absolute controlled chaos. You're going to have an absolute blast, and again, because this is a prototype version, you may see, hear, or experience different things than the retail prototype. Now I do hope still one day that Hi-10 Bomberman surfaces somehow, even though that runs on a piece of hardware that isn't emulated and doesn't really exist, but that is my #1 goal as far as Bomberman is concerned, to one day play Hi-10 Bomberman. But on the short list, if I knew there was a prototype version of Saturn Bomberman, that would have been #2, but of course now we have it here today, and that is absolutely incredible, because this again is still one of those games that I think is top 10 for the Sega Saturn. If I want to play Saturn, I don't know what game to play, I'm going to throw Saturn Bomberman in and I'm going to have an absolute blast doing this. You can play as a 2-player experience as well in the main mode, and I can't recommend it enough. My wife and I played through this in the last couple of years and we had an absolute blast the entire time we were doing it, and now I can't wait to get further into this prototype, because I'm sure as we get further in, more differences and more changes are going to be documented, because again, this is just the early days. Some small differences have already been noticed, but I'm sure there's something in there that an eagle-eyed viewer is going to spot. And if you are testing this and playing it, leave me a comment down below and tell me what you found so far, because I would be curious to hear what is going on. But as we get through the first area here and we get into the cutscene, when we take the roller coaster all the way to the boss level, again, I can't stress enough just how much joy this game actually brings. The visuals are spectacular, the soundtrack is a 10 out of 10, the gameplay is a 10 out of 10. This is just one of those special games that no matter how many times I play it, I'm always going to have a smile on my face and always going to enjoy my experience. And now with a prototype version, I'm going to be able to experience the game again and look for those differences. But if there was one prototype out there that you could get access to today, tell me what it is down below, because I would be curious what your favorite games are and what you would love to see more of the development process on. But again, Sega Saturn is just having such a moment in January of 2024. I didn't expect to see any of this, let alone do 3 special episodes on 3 quote-unquote new Sega Saturn games, and that is just so much fun from a retro gaming perspective as well as a Sega fan perspective. It seems like it's going to be the year of Sega Saturn, and hopefully Dreamcast joins the party as well, because I do know of a few developments happening over there that not many people know of yet. No hints down below, I'm just giving you guys a little bit of a teaser. But again, having a prototype version of one of my favorite video games of all time is so amazing, and these are new types of videos for the channel as well. I started off with Symphony of the Night on Sega Saturn and moved over to Symphony of the Night for the Sega Genesis, so if you're enjoying these videos, leave me a comment down below. I'm trying to do more current event things that don't involve Analog Pocket or MiSTer FPGA, because there's so many awesome developments going on in gaming pretty much every week. It could be a full-time job just to cover them, but I do enjoy talking about these new things. I get excited for them, and I know you do too, so if you enjoy this format, just tell me down below and maybe I will make some more of them. But again, getting a Saturn Bomberman prototype in 2024 is not something I expected, but it's probably the best gift I could possibly get for the new year outside of finding the 3DO M2 version of D2, which I'm always hunting for. And again, if somehow you've never played Saturn Bomberman, you owe it to yourself and you owe it to me if you're a viewer of the channel to go ahead and play it. And tell me down below if you've never played this game before, so I can tell you the same thing in the comments. But if you want to start hunting for differences, if you want to play around with the debug menu, if you want to see new features in Saturn Bomberman, definitely check out the Bomberman SS patch today. It takes about 3 minutes to set it up, and you too can start playing a prototype of one of the best games of all time, in my opinion. But short of that, that is what I have for Saturn Bomberman and Bomberman SS. It's wild to see this title screen come down with a completely different name. But I'll be back next time something cool happens, and I'll have a video out the week, but we are done. Go play Bomberman. Bye-bye.